Alright, what is up, you guys? Continuing on the SummerSlam reviews with 2008. And we are finally at the green and blue SummerSlam logo, the giant S. I love that logo. It's probably one of my favorite pay-per-view logos ever. I hate the fucking star, but hey, I digress. Thankfully, we don't have to see that stupid star anymore in these reviews. Now we get to hang out with the cool SummerSlam S for a while. But, this was kind of the end of an era and the beginning of one as well. This was the first PG pay-per-view in August of 2008. So, yeah, really doesn't feel very PG. Obviously this is the first one. But we did get a glimpse of what was to come in the main event. But we will get to that. So the biggest blockbuster of the summer was the advertisement. And, I always really liked the poster artwork. Just really cool. It was a good time to be a fan still. This was before the major decline in the product. And this was right after the 2008 draft, which really shook things up at the time. And let's get to the matches here. We had your opening match, Jeff Hardy versus MVP. Kind of a cool rivalry going into this. I'm a huge fan of both of them, obviously. And they had a good opening match. And, one of the things I always think of for this pay-per-view is, I went to a SmackDown ECW taping a few weeks before this. So this pay-per-view always reminds me of that. And, one of the big segments there was the VIP lounge with Jeff Hardy. I always love the VIP lounge. So, and I think this one I have to talk about presentation a little bit. This had a really cool stage. It had I guess it was a movie theater. Like the outside of a classic movie theater. And then they would put the lettering and what match was up. Really good stuff. And then we have a winner takes all match. Kofi Kingston and Mickie James versus Santina Marella and Beth Phoenix. Sounds like a joke, but it's not. This was another one of Mike Adamle's creations here. Yeah, we're in the Mike Adamle era now. But, this match was actually kind of good. It's kind of one of those guilty pleasure matches. You don't want to admit it's good, but it kind of is. So, it's a fun time. And then we have Mark Henry versus Matt Hardy for the ECW Championship. A 30-second match. Not much to say there. Moving along. And then WWE Championship match. Here we go. Triple H versus the Great Khali. That's a blockbuster right there. Doesn't get much bigger than that. But even Triple H, he did get kind of a decent match out of Great Khali. I will admit that. It's not terrible. I mean, it's not great. But it's watchable. It's enough to say, all right, I respect that. Decent enough. But then we have CM Punk versus JBL for the World Heavyweight Championship. I actually quite like this match. And it was very hard-hitting. There was a point where CM Punk did his little back, his signature. It's not like an enziguri or anything. It's more of a back heel kick, I guess you want to call it. And they landed wrong, and JBL's head literally landed on CM Punk's head, and it's brutal to watch. It really is. And, caused a gash to open up on the back of Punk's head. But, CM Punk, obviously one of my all-time favorite wrestlers. So, his 2008 title run was okay. It really just felt like he was a placeholder at the time, unfortunately. But it is what it is. He had a good match with JBL. I really like this one. Then we have, the Shawn Michaels announcement. That's obviously kind of what this SummerSlam is known for. Shawn Michaels and Chris Jericho, one of the best rivalries of modern wrestling. This was just kick-ass. So you basically had Shawn Michaels, you had the eye injury after he went through the Geritron on Raw. And, there's so much substance to this rivalry. There really is. He was making his retirement, and he had his wife Rebecca out there, former Nitro girl, fun fact. And, Chris Jericho went to punch Shawn Michaels, got out of the way, ended up hitting Rebecca, which actually was connected more than it was supposed to, but I think it added to the segment. It really did. So yeah, you had that great segment. And then for kind of your big selling point match of this pay-per-view, it felt like, for the first time ever, John Cena versus Batista. For the first time ever on pay-per-view, at least. I thought this was a good match. And Batista did win, but the only reason he did win was because Cena was sort of injured, and after this match, he was really injured, which he obviously got fixed up pretty quick, filmed 12 rounds, yada yada, there you go. He only really won because Cena was injured. It wasn't that bad of an injury, but, he was leaving to film a movie anyway, so it is what it is, I guess. But at the time, you have to realize this is 2008. This was leading up to Super Cena, so it was good to see Batista go over at the time. Shout out to Tommy from Wrestling Rampage. So, yeah, I thought it was a really good match. A lot of people thought this was going to be shit, including me, and, it ended up being pretty good. So, your main event, Hell in a Cell, Edge versus The Undertaker. This was a kick-ass Hell in a Cell match, and probably the best Hell in a Cell match since they went PG. And, a lot of backstage stories about this one. Edge wanted color, he wanted to bleed, because it was a Hell in a Cell match. You bleed. And Vince, he didn't want it. He said, we're going PG now. I want you guys to show what you can do in a PG environment in a Hell in a Cell match. Which, I don't agree with that. It's fine if you want to be PG. I still won't agree with that, but it's fine. I understand advertisers, the stupid politics of it. I get it. But there are some matches where you need the brutality. I've always said, I don't want violence just for violence. Violence in wrestling should always make sense and add to the story and not be senseless. I'm a huge ECW fan, but there's times where, you have to admit a lot of it was senseless. And Hell in a Cell, to me, especially with this kind of rivalry, you needed that blood and violence and everything. But they made it work without it, because this was phenomenal. And you had the great, I wouldn't say great, I think it was kind of campy and cheesy, but at the same time, the ending where Edge gets thrown through the mat by Taker off the ladder. It was cool. It was pretty, once you know the story behind it, it's pretty dangerous, actually. But, it worked. Great Hell in a Cell match. But when it comes to this pay-per-view, a lot of people might disagree, but I'm going to give this pay-per-view a B+. I am. A lot of people might disagree with that one. I'm sure they will. But I thought this was a very solid event for a lot of reasons. And, I think it's one of the better SummerSlams we've had in a long time. Honestly, it's hard to think of one that we had better, that was even as good as this one since then. But I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Let me know your letter grades down below. For now, this has been the DVD Freak. Peace out.